We are here with Todd Cravens, who is the CEO of Galaxy Gaming, which I believe you describe yourself as the world's largest independently owned table game company.
That's correct.
Give us a quick overview of Galaxy, where you've been and where you think
Sure.
you'll be in the next year or two.
So we are laser focused on table games. That's all we do. We wake up in the morning, table games, go to bed at night, table games. And that's been the DNA of the company all along. So we have some of the world's best known games, 21+3, we distribute perfect pairs, we own bonus craps, games like that. And then where we've been is we've been in the land-based business along with some technology for progressives with those things. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, we started licensing our content to the iGaming space. And about 2.5, 3 years ago, we bought our distributor. And so the iGaming portion of our business, we license our table games to about 1,400 casinos around the world in iGaming, and that's about 40% of our business right now. Where we're going is we're going to continue to focus on great content in the most important verticals. So we have a lot of content. We own 5 of the 7 best blackjack games for iGaming. We've introduced more games into the Baccarat vertical this year. We have more that we're showing on the show floor this year. Craps, and then what we will do is we're debuting here this week is GOS, or the Galaxy operating system. And what that is going to do is that content alone on the land-based business is not enough. You have got to couple it with interesting technology. So, a lot of the times that's around progressives. Does that mean a mystery? Does that mean tiered progressives? Eventually, can you pull analytics off of there? Can you drive media? And so we are unveiling the Galaxy OS at this show. And so what the future looks like is more great content and then getting much, much better on the technology side of things.
You are felt table games.
We are.
Except for the internet, of course.
Yeah, but we also license it. We also license content to ETG players, right? So we've licensed a lot of our product for years to Interblock. So 21+3 is on every one that's lit up out there, and then into the iGaming space. But there's other channels in the future that we think our games will be applicable, right? We think that there's opportunity into iLottery with e-instants and scratchers and things like that, and then also into the social realm. So at the end of the day, we're pretty simple, right? Make great content, put some great technology around it, and then push it through various channels, be ETGs, felt, online, what have you.
And it's a big world out there.
It is a big world out there, yeah. And for us, we think that we've kind of scratched the surface. We only operate in the land-based side in about 20% of the world's casinos. And when you think about iGaming, we have great exposure, as I mentioned, about 1,200 or 1,300 casinos. But even though only over half of the U.S. states have online sports betting, only 11% of the population in the United States has access to iGaming. We're believers that online sports betting is going to be a precursor to more iGaming out there. And we're already signed up with great partners, both in the operator side and then the B2B operators, guys like Evolution and Playtech and Pragmatic and those folks. So as these new jurisdictions open, we're already set to kind of go with those guys. So that's why we're pretty excited about, as you say, the big world out there.
Right. So you would not see yourself someday extending into electronic games or into studio iGaming, but rather be a supplier to those companies like the Interblock and like the Evolution?
Yeah, so for the longest time, if we talked about the iGaming side, for the longest time, we were just a licensor of our content to either the operators or to a B2B studio. On the show floor, Galaxy Gaming Digital, which is our unit that looks after that, we have actually created our first 3 games in-house, where we're actually partnering with an RGS partner, and we'll put that product out there. And we're doing that for a couple reasons. Is that when we had a distributor out there and they were just licensing IP, the look and the feel and things like that were not something that the company was involved in. Now that we've taken that in-house, we are very, very particular in how does the game play, how does the game look, and the other thing is that we can get those games out there more quickly. The other thing that's really important is that it's very easy for an online customer to say, I got to have 21+3, I got to have perfect pairs. Known quantity, everybody's got it. When you start to get deeper into portfolio, they want to say, well, where's the proof in the pudding? Well, we have some new games that we really like, and so we can go out there and put it out there with an RGS and show this RNG game and say, okay, this is how it's doing. We can then go to our live dealer studio partners and say, here's what we're doing with this. This might be something you want to include in your portfolio.
You're still a small company, even though you have this increasing diversity of products that you've just done a really good job of
Thank you.
describing. What's your competitive advantage against those companies that have much bigger resources than you?
I would say two things, focus and customer service. So on the focus side, as I mentioned earlier, we are a table games company, right? We create table content first. You can't make if you have a bad game and have the best tech, doesn't matter. So first and foremost, at the top of the period, you've got to have great content. And I think that when that's your sole focus and you're going in and you're talking to table games operators, you're speaking the same language. You have their vested interest. Some of the other competitors that we have, table games is a portion of their business. It is a small portion of their business, and a lot of the times it's used as a way to go and sell a block of slots. We don't have that, right? We're in there saying, this is the right game for you for these reasons. So that focus for us, I think, is number one. Number two is the customer service. So we are adamant and measuring how we do. So every time we have an interaction with a customer, if it's a preventative maintenance deal, if we're going out and we're installing something, we send out surveys. And so we get a net promoter score. And I send out every Monday to the entire company what our net promoter score is year to date and what our net promoter score was for that week. Just to give you kind of a bar, a net promoter score in the high 70s is something like an Apple has. That's high. So our net promoter score, as I sent it out to everyone today for year to date, is 97.9. And so we have a really fiercely loyal customer base. And so I think that we don't have to go out and go get tons of new customers. We have great customers that we can offer more things to. But I think those two things combined, focus on creating great product for them, and then really taking care of the customer, it's a pretty good combination for us. Yeah.
Small company.
Mm-hmm.
Small companies oftentimes face the situation of how do you finance growth?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it internally? Do you go to the public markets? Do you sell?
Yeah.
Strategically, what are the options that Galaxy is looking at?
So, I would say strategically, all those things are on the table. We did a pretty major refinancing when we purchased the shares from Rob Saucier. And so we have some debt on the balance sheet as of today, but our business is pretty cash generative, right? And so we've done a couple of tuck-ins recently, and we were able to use proceeds from operations to take care of those. But I do think that if a couple of the maybe larger deals, larger for us, would come out there, we do have those options out there. We are very, very careful in regards to throwing equity around for deals. We like our business, and so we don't want to go out there and dilute things. The debt markets, as you probably know, have gotten a little tighter with everything that's going on in the world. And then in regards to the sales side of things, boy, I hope not. Right? I think that we're hitting our stride right now. I think the company has, as I mentioned, we're only in 20% of the land-based businesses, and there's a lot of room to still go in iGaming. So from that standpoint, I would, for me, personally, that would be kind of the last resort, if you will. But I do think that there are options out there, and the fact that the company is a 100% recurring revenue business gives us our own internal options, as long as they're not massive deals that we want to do.
What do you say to prospective investors? Why should they invest in you?
Yeah, I would say, on the internal side of things, number one, I would say the team that we have in place right now. This is probably the tightest and most focused we've had since I've been there. I've been in the company for about 5.5 years right now. Harry and I, who's our CFO, have worked together that entire time, and we pretty much finish each other's sentences. And but the product side of things and everyone else that's in place right now is the best that it's been. Number two, as I mentioned, is that I think our customer base is very, very loyal. We see that not just within the Net Promoter Score, but we also see that from a standpoint that our churn rate is pretty low, right? We don't lose a lot of placements, especially on the electronic side of things. And then on the third side, I would say the innovation that we have right now, both in the tech side and new content, is probably the best that it's ever been. So those are kind of like, the intangibles, if you will. But historically, the company, if you look over the last 5-6 years and you smooth it out with COVID in there, we're a business that on the top line grows in the high teens to low 20s. Our expenses grow at roughly half that. We appreciate about high 40s of EBITDA margin right now, and if the dollar wasn't as strong as it would probably be better than that, because over half of our business is billed in sterling or in the euros. And then, as I mentioned, is that or as you mentioned, actually, it's a big world out there. If we've only penetrated 20% of land base, and if we only have 11% of the U.S. population ready to go with iGaming, there's a lot more to go out there. So that's really where I think the growth elements of those types of things come from. That would be my pitch. I'm not a big pitcher to the investors. I do have good relationships with them, but I don't want to come off as P.T. Barnum. As I kind of have a saying, is that we'll take care of the E's, we'll let them take care of the P's on that type of stuff, and let people price us. But we're really pleased with kind of the place that we sit in right now. Probably more excited about the next 24 or 36 months than I have at any point since I've been in the business.
You mentioned foreign currency exchange,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a negative right now.
Yeah.
But that's also something that normalizes at some
Absolutely.
point, and then
Absolutely.
bounces back.
Exactly right. Yeah, and so even with that, we remain in very, very good shape. But as I mentioned, a big portion of our business is in iGaming, and so a tremendous amount of that comes from Europe. And then one of our largest markets is the UK market on the land-based side of things. So that's where the sterling billing's coming in.
My other observation for your company is you're a small company, but you've got major league talent at the top. You mentioned Harry. I mean, we're really lucky. I should say Harry Haggerty.
Yeah.
Your CFO for folks who may not know who Harry is.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's one of these things where I think it's not just at the top, and I think that is important to have, but it becomes more and more important to continue to backfill. So, in this year, we've brought on Steph Nell to run land-based sales for us, and Steph was at TCS for a number of years, has great relationships, and then recently, Felicia, who's just sitting over there, was named to 40 Under 40, our director of marketing. And so I think what's interesting—
We can tell she's under 40.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting now is that the company is continuing to attract more and more talented people. The other part of it is that we're having people stay with us that have now had a few reps. They've had a few times around the sun with us. And so, we have one lady that works with us who's in charge of operations, and she and I worked together at TCS before we worked here. And it's one of those things where, I can give her a look and she knows. But from that standpoint, so we have, I think, a team that is getting tighter and tighter and is really coalescing around what we want to get done.
Now, my penultimate question, which is pretty standard for everybody, I think you've already answered, but I'll give you a chance to elaborate on it if you choose. What should people do you most want them to see when they come to your booth this year?
Yeah, I think what I really, really want people to see is that, as I mentioned, our focus is table games. And so if you're serious about that part of the business for your operation, you can come and see the investments that we've made both on the content side of things, on the tech side of things. And I think on the digital side of things, what's becoming more and more interesting to me now is that we're having larger conversations with customers that have exposure to iGaming. So we're having more of these kind of omni-channel conversations. That might be an overused word, what have you, but our content right now accounts for 2% of the GGR in the United States. That includes all the slots and everything like that. So you have to sit there and say, okay, when these people are leaving my property in Pennsylvania or in Michigan, and they go home and they play table games, they're playing this content. How do I make sure that that type of experience is pulled all the way through? And so that's kind of where we sit in a little bit of a unique position. But I think overall, the tagline is that we're creating table games for everyone, everywhere. And again, it starts with the content. You have to have the best content, right? Wrap it in the tech, and then push it through the different channels. And that's, we're pretty simple. We like to simplify things on there. But I think if people come away with anything, that's what we want.
Todd, this has been a really good overview. Anything else you'd like folks to know about Galaxy?
No, I think we're locked in, and we're excited to be back at G2E. It's been a while since we've been here. Our little elves have been hard at work, and we're really excited to kind of show people what we've been up to. And thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Always insightful.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Frank. Thank you.